Hey guys, welcome to my latest live stream. My name is Jessica Dwyer. I'm the VIP entertainment reporter for Zenny 62 Media. Today I'm coming with you with some very sad news. If you've probably seen the headlines already, that actor Ben Cross died today at the age of 72. Ben Cross was a fantastic actor, one of my favorites. He had some amazing range, and he was one of those rare breeds that brought a level of class and almost royalty to any role that he played. For me personally, I was a massive Dark Shadows fan and still am. A lot of people are talking about, of course, Chariots of Fire. They're talking about his work in First Night. He had a lot of work history, but the thing with me, and the thing that's always going to stay with me, was Dark Shadows. If you didn't know, and apparently some people didn't, of course there was the original late 60s, early 70s series Dark Shadows starring Jonathan Frid, Joan Bennett, and it was a kind of a staple of the 60s and 70s for kids to run home and watch it, as it was a soap opera that aired in the mornings. They did a revival of the show in the early 90s on NBC, and Ben Cross was cast as the legendary vampire Barnabas Collins. Barnabas Collins is a character who was the precursor to nearly every other vampire hero that you've ever seen. Anne Rice states that Dark Shadows influenced her creation of Lestat, and so you have Dark Shadows to thank for a lot of things. I didn't get to grow up with that because I'm not that old, but I grew up with the early 90s version. And I was absolutely excited when this happened. And Ben Cross just nailed it. He brought this level of old school Hammer horror to the role. Dan Curtis came back and did the show, and it was just an amazing series. It only lasted, of course, one season because it's NBC and they kill everything off quickly. That's a genre show because they'd always put it on Friday nights, which was like the death slot. But Cross brought this regality to it, and he made the role his own while honoring Jonathan Frid's performance. And it was the only show I've ever gone and picketed a TV station when they canceled something. This is the first time I ever did that. I drove 2 hours to St. Louis to picket the NBC affiliate because they had canceled the show. Ben Cross not only did Barnabas Collins, though, of course, everyone's talking, as I said, about Chariots of Fire, but he was also in the new Star Trek via J.J. Abrams as Sarek, Spock's father. He has a ton of film work and television work that he did. This really hit me hard because I grew up as a teenager, I absolutely loved him as Barnabas, and I loved it. He's just one of those actors that no matter what the project was, brought an A game to it that elevated it. You don't have a lot of actors with this prowess. The one that I would compare him to in terms of, we'll go back to Barnabas again because it's one that I absolutely love, was Christopher Lee. He was able to bring this level of regal gentility and gentlemanliness to Barnabas, but could on the dime turn feral and animalistic. And all it would take was a look of his eyes and he could change, what you were seeing. It's a real loss because he was not that old. He was only 72. There's no release on what caused his passing, other than he had been ill and then took a turn for the worse, even though he was working up to 10 days prior to his death. It's a loss. It really is. And if you go back through his repertoire and his list of work, he was actually working just recently on 12 Monkeys. Like I said, 10 days prior, he had been working on films. He was active up until he passed. And there's very few actors like that I can think of that are still around right now that, really came back to that old Hammer Studios, way of acting and feel. He has done a lot of work that you can watch on streaming, and you should. And if you are like some people that I'm surprised, as I said, I thought a lot of people knew about the revival of Dark Shadows, but apparently not. And you can actually see it on, I believe it's on Amazon Prime for free for streaming. I believe it's on Hulu as well. It is a really fantastic show. And if you're like a fan of, if you're younger, if you are a fan of the Vampire Diaries or Supernatural or, the originals, if you like that, if you like Buffy, you owe it to yourself to learn of Dark Shadows and go watch the revival, if not the original series, but the revival because of Ben Cross. There's so many good actors in it. Gene Simmons plays the matriarch. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is in it. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, little 10-year-old Joseph Gordon-Levitt is in this show, and he plays a psycho of a kid named David. But it's just, and Adrian Paul, for those of you who like Highlander, and he is fantastic in it as well. It's beautifully lush, gorgeous filmed, nice old school vampire stuff. And but if that's not your cup of tea, Ben Cross, if you love Arthurian legend, he was the bad guy and an excellent bad guy in First Night, opposite Sean Connery and Richard Gere. He was also in a really underrated, creepy, demonic film called The Unholy that came out in the 80s. That's a kind of a cult classic now. But he did a lot of TV, a lot of genre stuff. And like I said, he was one of these guys that just elevated everything he was in and made you harken back to those old school actors like Peter Cushing, like Christopher Lee, that just had that, I don't know, that thing that those guys had, which is really hard to replicate. So I cried a little bit today because of it, because it's sad. And he was a part of my fandom, crossed over to a lot of things. Star Trek is one of them. And he did such a great job as Sarek, because Mark Lenard is a hard act to follow. Just ask James Frain, who took it over in Star Trek Discovery as that role. But I absolutely adored Ben Cross, and I will be watching Dark Shadows tonight, because he also, for those of you who are comic book fans, I've been saying this a lot, and I've said this for years. The I, Vampire series that DC did, the original run that was back in the late 70s, early 80s, I think it might have been early 80s, as that his Barnabas was as close as I've ever seen and probably will ever get to that original Andrew Bennett. With the look of it, he had this very aristocratic and very pronounced nose, but he really looked a lot like that comic book character in that role. I think Dan Curtis may have done that on purpose. I'm not sure, but it was perfect casting for that. And as close as I'll ever get to my Vampire comic book come to life. So Ben Cross, thank you for all of your work. It's a very sad day for fans. And seriously, go watch Dark Shadows' revival on Amazon Prime and marathon it. It's one season. I think it's like 12 episodes, but it's so good. And if you love old school horror and old school Hammer films, Dan Curtis and that group created something beautiful and great and bloody and sexy. And a lot of that was due to Ben Cross just being awesome in the role. And it's a sad loss, and a surprising one, but sad loss today. And guys, look up his repertoire, watch his stuff. He did a lot of great things, and I want to thank you for watching. I'll be back again this week with some more entertainment news, hopefully happier. And but go check out Dark Shadows or Wicked Little Things, which is another underrated horror film that he did that was just great. I actually it was part of the After Dark movie series, and I went to the theater and saw that, and it was fantastic. But thank you guys, and stay safe. I hope you stay safe, and spread the word, not the virus. Okay, I'll see you later, and go watch Dark Shadows.